Board of Education meeting in order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome everyone. We've had an exciting day today. The teacher back to school in service, which was phenomenal. And I did want to make a note that our board member Tom Blackburn is away getting his, I think it's his daughter's set up at school. So obviously it's a pretty good excuse. We'll let him fly with that one. So, any other announcements before we move on to the approval of the agenda?
Madam President, I move that we approve the agenda with the following amendments. Add additional certified and classified personnel actions for consideration, number F3. Add administrator personnel handbook to item F4E. Add item F4F, Daggett McNulty revised agreement for services provided. And add item F4G, donation from Alex Wallace of $21,000 for professional staff development.
Motion by Laura. Second by Jean. Thank you. Never had one of those fail before. Any discussion? All those in favor signal by raising your hand. Motion carries. Great. All right, KJ, it's time for us to look at review the budget hearing for the 2014-15 district budget.
Didn't have anything formal prepared. I just didn't know if you had any additional questions on the information that has been provided.
All right. So consider the budget hearing open for the 2014-15 district budget. Any comments from the public? From board members?
I don't believe we've had anybody sign up to speak.
So we need to, we've already approved it though. We have to approve it again after the hearing.
We approved it for publication.
So
Everybody speaking, so I would take a motion to
close the hearing.
First, you gotta close the hearing. Yeah. You gotta close the hearing. You gotta close the hearing, and then
Did we have to move to open the hearing? You just had to open it, but you have to move to close it. Okay, I'm sorry. Parliamentary procedure or lack thereof is. Okay, so we do need a motion to close the hearing. Motion by Mark, second by Alex. Any discussion?
I have a question though, and maybe KJ, you can answer that. I know this budget's gonna carry us forward, but how sure or what type of confidence do we have that we can receive the monies that from the state that we're supposed to be getting to support the budget?
I think that's a very good question. Basically, you're asking how comfortable are we that we're going to actually get the money that's been promised to us. In my opinion, I believe that we can be pretty confident for this year in what we're going to receive. I do have a little hesitation going forward, but only time will tell what is going to happen and where we're going to be at. But for this year, I'm comfortable that the budget gives us enough room and cushion that we will be able to do what we want to do.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, signal by raising your hand. Motion carries. Okay,
I move to approve the proposed 2014-15 district budget as presented.
motion by Laura, second by Tim. Again, any further discussion? All those in favor, signal by raising your hand. Motion carries. All right, we are going to move the recognition down to later in the meeting, so it's now time to mention any correspondence that any board members received in the last 2 weeks. All right, so consent agenda.
Madam President, I recuse myself from the conflict of interest.
Okay. Motion by Laura, second by Tim. Any further discussion? All those in favor, signify by raising your hand. Motion carries. Let me know that Alex is dismissed on the vote. Awesome, now we're on to the highlight of the night. Okay, curriculum report. Model School Conference, Dr. Dennis, let's hear what happened.
Okay. For this, I'm going to be joined by several people who attended the conference, so they're right here. You've heard a lot about the conference. That was Katie Upton.
She's excited.
Yes, she is. We're all excited. You've heard a lot about the conference, but tonight you're going to hear from the people who actually attended and participated and worked through that conference experience. And so I'm very excited about what they're here to share with you. And really, a lot of you heard today from the presenters, Bill Daggett and Ray McNulty. And they shared a lot of the ideas in a very condensed form, but ideas that we heard at the conference. So, while they are speaking, I'm going to get this started. We created a Twitter account specific to the conference. And so flashing up on the screen in 7-second intervals will be tweets from the conference, from our participants, or from people who were commenting about our presentation, or from something that was tweeted by our people or retweeted that was an aha moment or something that they wanted to remember. So you'll see things from the conference going on behind you at the same time. I'm going to turn it over at this point to Barb Hochschild and Tracy Leiker, who are going to talk about teacher empowerment. We'll hear about the pods and the structure of how we approach the conference. And then you'll hear about the conference itself and the takeaways and how we're trying to apply those learnings back into the district. So, ladies.
I'm Barb Hochschild. I'm principal at Bernadine Sitz Intermediate Center. And one of the things that we want to ask you is what empowerment means to you. And you won't have to write it down or share any of that. But to take maybe just a few seconds and think about what that word means, empowerment. One of the common themes we really found in Orlando was the empowerment of our staff. And so when you look at what the definition of empower is, it's to give power or authority, to authorize, to enable, or permit. As administrators or leaders in our district, we want to, and we have empowered our staff to step up and to take a lead in student achievement and success. We need to continue to strive for the 3 R's, the rigor, the relevance, and the relationships. According to Dr. Sue Sakowitz, change happens in school, not in the central office. Teachers, administrators, they are the key to leading that change. Good leaders grow, energized, focused cultures in their schools. And again today, we heard over and over again that culture drives strategies.
For example, in our district, teachers were chosen to lead pod meetings at the Model School Conference in Orlando, Florida this year. They were selected and they met in May to organize a goal and discussion questions for these pods. Once we all arrived, they met in the mornings about 7 a.m. and they discussed what topic questions and discussion topics that would be held at the end of conference. We all attended sessions and then we met after each session at the end of the conference each day. We as administrators would like to see this continued out throughout the school year. We have began this. We started last week. We created some discussion topics and our teachers, we selected leaders and we practiced this within our schools. We attended the conference today. We will go back to our buildings and continue those pod discussions. And it is our goal to continue throughout the year with any district in services we have.
The excitement we've seen in staff who attended this conference is overwhelming. The staff took the lead to share information and ideas with the staff during our back-to-school in-services. We hope you see the excitement of these leaders throughout their presentation tonight.
Hello, I'm Kellen Mayer. I teach first grade at Georgia Matthews Elementary. I'm going to talk a little bit about the pods and how the pods worked. So all the principals, teachers, and instructional coaches who attended the conference were broken up into pods, or groups. There were 7 pods. Each pod had 7, 8, or 9 people in it. The pods, in each pod there were teachers of various grade levels and various subject areas and instructional coaches. And each pod, as they said, had a teacher leader. The 3 of us were pod leaders. And each pod also had a principal for administrative support. The pods met once in Orlando before the conference started, and then each night after the sessions were finished. At those meetings, they discussed their big takeaways from the sessions that they attended, and also how we could implement those things in Garden City. They also discussed sessions that we wanted to go to the following day, so we could make sure that we were going to different things and hearing as many ideas as we could. And Sarah's going to share more about the role of the pod leaders.
My name is Sarah Cross, and I teach at A. Hubert, 3rd grade. As pod leaders, we met with administrative support every day, every morning at 7:15. And when we came together to meet during that time, we were able to reflect on our previous pod discussions. And then we set our topics and our discussion questions for the pod meeting that day. And then once we got back to Garden City after the conference, we also had a debriefing meeting. And for those people who could come, it was a time when we could meet again in our pods. We had some time to talk about what we had learned and what our biggest takeaways were from the conference. And then we discussed those as a whole group. And then we just really took some time to reflect on the common takeaways that we all had.
My name is Katie Upton, and I teach at the high school, and I'm going to tell you about the common themes that we identified in our pod discussions and that sort of thing. And the first one is rigor and relevance and how to implement these strategies into our classrooms. And the second one is the culture of innovation that we have at USD-457. And then finally, teacher empowerment. And then also, we were really validated by going to the Model Schools Conference and realizing that a lot of the things that we are doing is innovative. We were assuming that schools all over the country were doing some of the strategies that we use already, and that's just not the case, and we were glad to hear it. And our next group's going to, I guess, expand on those themes.
I have a pod question. So how were you determined pod leaders? Was that just decided amongst the group?
I think Dr. Dennis and some of his...
We divided the participants into 7 groups and identified leaders within the groups too.
Awesome. But so you had teachers from other areas in your pods.
Oh, yes.
So you were leaders among leaders.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Hi, my name is Carrie Steelman-Schmidt, and we're going to talk a little bit about the major takeaways from the conference. The first one is innovation, and it feels really silly to be up here talking about innovation when that guy's in the room, but I'm going to do my best to just give you a general idea of what he said. And that is that education is changing. We know that the world is changing, so education has to change. And in order for education to change, we have to change our practices. And so one thing that we learned a lot about is best practices, they are good. They are things that are working, strategies that are working in the world today. But in order for us to move forward, we need to be trying new things. So if we only do the best practices, education's going to stay the same. We need to start thinking of new ideas. And the staff is so excited, so pumped up, has new ideas. So I'm hoping that you will be hearing about many of those coming to the Board of Education, things that teachers want to try, new strategies or innovations.
Hi, my name is Grant Allen, special education teacher at Kenneth Emerson Middle School. Another takeaway was teacher empowerment. And one of my favorite sessions that I went to was from Dr. Sue Sakowitz, called Take Control or Be Controlled. And the thesis of that session was basically this. As educators, we have a choice every day. We can either decide to be victims of our circumstances, or we can be proactive. We can take control, and we can be empowered. Now, Dr. Susakowicz says that don't spend time focusing on things you can't control. Things like a master schedule, people you work with. No, I'm just kidding. Maybe some happened. The kids came to school with some drama. We can't focus. We can't control that. Things we can control is how we interact with one another, the cultures that's in our schools, okay, how we build relationships with our kiddos. Those are things that we can control, and that's what we should be focusing on. And she also talked about some examples from Brockton High School. She got a little creative. She went and got in touch with the media, and she took out like a column every week or so and talked about the things that she was doing at Brockton High School. And she got on the AM radio in town and talked for 5 minutes every day about the things that are going on in Brockton. So she was creative about how to use the resources that were available to her. So taking control, being proactive, empowerment was a big takeaway from the conference.
Hi, I'm Shyla Rush. I teach 6th grade at Charles Stone's. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about learning more about Quad D and rigor and relevance. So becoming a model district is a really exciting goal, and the teachers in this district are excited about pursuing that goal. Last year we were given some training pieces that helped to send us and push us into the right direction. But a little bit like our students, and because we're human, some of us grasp the concept of that rigor and relevant framework a little more deeply or thoroughly than some of the others. And so what it seemed like was needed was a deeper understanding and some access to the actual informational practices that will show us what that working rigor and relevance framework really looks like when it's being done and done well. So those that attended were able to choose from multitudes of sessions that demonstrated and showed how to effectively implement and those practices and that focused on the rigor and the relevance. And it was done across all subject areas. I know that after I attended some of those sessions personally, I would have like flashes of genius where I would sit and I would just start typing so fast because I wanted to get everything down that was coming to me, and I didn't want to lose it because I really was excited about trying it in my classroom this coming year. And as previously mentioned, you learned a little bit about the pod groups, and we were able to meet with those pods after each day, and we shared our ideas, and we talked about how that information that we learned can be used to reach that Quad D rigorous and relevant instruction in our classrooms to further our students. Those meetings really were amazing and invaluable to us. They were a great thing to be able to do. And so the sessions and the conference itself is really exactly what we as teachers needed so that we can push further into that new way that we're trying to educate our students for higher, not just higher achievement, but higher relevant achievement. We had to be taught and given access to more tools and information so that we can teach, so that we can teach our students, so that they can help teach themselves, which is ultimately what we want to do, is help them learn how to educate themselves to be functional and more successful in this ever-evolving, changing world. And I know that undoubtedly that experience will help push us and provide us the tools that we need to not just become or have a few spotty model classrooms or model schools, but an overall ultimate model district.
Hello, my name is Christopher Corby. I teach 2nd grade at Florence Wilson Elementary School. You heard Carrie talk about innovation as her key takeaway. You heard Grant talk about teacher empowerment as his key takeaway. You heard Shyla talk about the rigorous and relevant instruction. And all of these things are huge topics at the Model Schools Conference. And if you ask the other 60 educators that attended, I'm sure you would hear every single one of them say something along those lines. But in addition to that, I think one of the biggest key takeaways for everybody that attended, I'm speaking for you guys, stop me if I'm wrong, validation. We saw these things that are going on all over the country, and we're doing those right here in Garden City. Not just validation, what we're doing and making sure that what we are doing is right for the students, but pride. I've attended the Model Schools Conference 2 times, and I have now presented at the Model Schools Conference. And whenever I came back, the amount of pride I felt to be a Garden City teacher was just through the roof. So words can't explain. Can you add to that? I mean, to say that we as Garden City got to attend and present at the Model Schools Conference is professionally probably one of the coolest things I've ever done. So, but that validation is the key thing. Everybody that attended can now take all these things that they learned and all these sessions that they sat through, take them back to their educators in their buildings and share. And it's like a fire. This validation is a fire that's just going to start, I think it's going to start raging through Garden City. And we'll see more and more teachers wanting to attend this conference and more teachers being passionate about what they're doing. And now to add a little bit about our actual specific presentation, we'll start with Grant again.
Yeah. So, kind of an interesting story. The Garden City crew was, they planned to leave that Saturday before the conference. The first flight out, got out with pretty well, I don't think without a hitch.
Lucky them.
Lucky them. The 7 of the 8 of the presenters were on the second flight, which was canceled due to mechanical errors. So then we got bumped back to the flight on Sunday morning at 6 a.m. when they put more fuel on the plane than they should have. So then we got booted to the next flight after. And so it was kind of up in the air. It was like, ooh, are we going to get there? We weren't quite sure. So I actually drove out to Wichita and flew to Dallas, then to Orlando out there. But eventually we all did get out there nice and safe, and no harm done. But I think the important thing is that we had other teachers lined up to say, gosh, if these people don't get here, I'll step in and I'll do this presentation. I'll take their place.
Who was the one presenter that made it on the original trip?
Actually, he wasn't even on the original trip. He had flown out of Michigan.
Yeah, so it was just a fluke that he was there.
Yeah. They had gone out early,
I
so.
bet he was freaking.
But yeah, they flew out of Michigan. Yeah. But I mean, that was like the cool thing is that we had teachers that were like, nice, if these people can't make it, I'll step up. I mean, I haven't seen the presentation exactly, but I mean, we live and breathe this stuff. This is what we do. So I can step in and I can do this. And that was the really cool part, is that we had people that were willing to step up and help out. So.
Well, and that really adds to that validation piece. That validates everything that we're doing in Garden City. The presentation, what we were doing, is being done at all the other schools. So they felt comfortable enough to step up and present what they had never seen before. So that says something about our staff.
I think the only feeling better than seeing all of these beautiful people for the first time that we had all actually made it down there and we were going to be able to do the presentation with the team that we practiced with. The only better feeling was actually doing the presentation. We presented 2 times. The first one, I think, was great. We had a ton of support. We had lots of teachers, administrators showing up to support us. But the real slam dunk was the second presentation. We kind of hit it out of the park, I think. Yeah, it was fantastic. The room was completely full. There were people standing on the sides, sitting on the floor. And after we left, we were approached by I don't even know how many people just telling us, that was a great presentation. I learned so much. I can't wait to bring this back to my district. And we have the tweets to prove it.
So did word travel about your first presentation, and that's why your second presentation was so well attended, or?
It must have.
That could be it.
Must be it.
I know walking from one session to another after we'd already presented, I don't think there was one intercession that one of us in the group hadn't been stopped and said how much what we presented related to what people were doing in their own schools. So, as you guys know, we had a chance to present to you guys before we went to Florida. and you gave us suggestions. And I am proud to say, within the week of time we had, we were able to take some of those suggestions, make some changes, and more specifically, Mrs. Clifford, your joke about the 9 months, it was a hit. Our baby. There were people all over the room laughing, so I just wanted to give credit where credit is due. But in all seriousness, thank you so much for your suggestions, and thank you so much for what you guys do, and allowing us to be the teachers that we can be.
And there were some great things. Obviously, you've heard some great things about the presentation, but I think something that we missed on and that we really didn't realize would happen until after the presentation, obviously, was when we sat down and talked with some of our fellow teachers, who were like, man, I didn't know we were doing that, or, man, that is a great idea. We are doing that. And I mean, just like the mentoring program and the release time and that sort of thing, I think it was just as beneficial for our own teachers in the district to watch that presentation and go, man, we do some great things.
There were light bulbs that came on.
We live it, so we kind of forget it sometimes, I think, that we are being innovative and that sort of thing. We want to thank you all for the opportunity, for sending us and for believing in us to go and represent the school, the district. It was an honor. We actually got to go out to dinner with the Scholastic representative for Kansas and had a wonderful time. And I think what I take away from the whole event the most was the camaraderie that we built as a presentation group. I mean, we went from not even knowing one another to, being great friends and being able to laugh when somebody does something goofy that's just kind of become expected. But the family that we've become in such a short amount of time is just priceless, and that allows us to take that fire and that culture that we hear about all the time. It's just spreading, and so we are so grateful, and we'd just like to thank you all for supporting us, and the doctors for believing in us and giving us this opportunity. So thank you.
Thank you.
I guess questions or?
Okay. Yeah. Thanks so much. To kind of close it out, as it were, we're honored tonight to have Ray McNulty with us, who obviously was a featured presenter at the conference, who presented today. But we've asked him to be here and just share his thoughts on Garden City, on the sessions today, and anything else you'd like to share.
Anything?
Well, within reason.
First, I want to just tell you how humble I am, how humbled I feel after listening to their conversation about their experience. We spend in the United States a lot of money in education, and when you think about how much we actually spend on our teachers in terms of training and scaling them up. If you're in a business, you have to invest in your people. That's the most important thing you have is your people. We look to educate our students in this country at a higher level, but it's, as I would say many times, it's about adult learning first. If we get the adults right, we get the learning right. And so listening to you all, just so that you get a sense, I travel to all over the country, actually around the world, and I can tell you that it's rare you could get teachers speaking with that much passion about their work. And you all know that if they get it right, if they feel empowered, and they get it right, just miracles happen with kids. And it's a challenge in education to get that kind of energy, and so you ought to be proud of the Garden City people and the board for supporting, and the kindness of the board as well in many different ways. The leadership, set a high mark. They're really saying you're in a tough spot. You have a good school system, and it's dangerous to be a good school system in a rapidly changing environment because you get so complacent. And what I think you heard is that they're honored by doing stuff, that they're excited by what they're doing, but they also know that they can't be satisfied. They have to move. And so that, in order to get that to occur, you got to, it's really about adult learning. And it's about, in my mind, I think some of the leadership in the district providing, the two words I like to use at times is coherent and focused. There's a lot of districts have 30 or 40 initiatives, but they don't tie together and nobody can make sense of it. it's a lot of things, but when it's coherent and it's focused, they can see the connections. And I was listening to you so well, how well you talked about, you know, things we're doing, other people are doing, and other people are saying to us, you know, wow, you're doing that, and then at the same time knowing we got to be better, and that it's really important for our kids to feel that way. I want to say a couple other quick things. One, I want to apologize for Bill, the president, CEO of the center, Dr. Daggett. His daughter's having surgery tomorrow, and the one challenge is, you know, the international airport here. And it's limited number of flights. Bill's got to be back, and really had to drive to Denver to be able to be at the surgery tomorrow. So I'm kind of extending his sadness for not being here. I'm sure he would have loved to listen to you all talk about it. You need to also know that the feedback on their sessions. I called our office after this afternoon's event, and I said, hey, I haven't seen all the numbers yet. Because they do an incredible job of getting feedback on every session. And you guys hit it out of the park. You did a great job. There's a lot of good feedback. They're compiling that. They'll send it out. But here it is. About 8,000 people, all educators, and I have to say that they left a really pretty significant impression in the education world, and I think it's really very special. A couple of things I just want to say. I think, as I usually work with slides, so I keep turning around. There I am. Stupid rules. Memorizing dates, right? But I think when I think about the work that goes on, there's a couple of things that emerged tonight that actually helped me validate some things. One is that our schools were really designed around theory of cooperation. You do first grade, I'll do second grade. You do math, I'll do science. That was a really industrial model, and one of the things I think you heard them talking about here is that they got together, they collaborated, and they across schools, and they talked. And it's really, they're responsible for all the kids that come to Garden City, not just their 5th grade class or their 4th. They're responsible for every single one of them, as the large group of educators, large group of administrators, and all the board. It's not like you're just responsible for policy, because you're not. You're going to end up having to struggle through what the results are. And if you're in a building, it's not just your class, it's all the kids. And what I found was that what I heard today in a lot of the sessions, but not in the sessions, but in conversation, is how they really work more as a team. And I think that's so critical. You can have. I go to more school districts where they'll say, "Oh, you should see our 3rd grade team. They're great. They're great." I think, well, what happened to the 2nd grade and 4th grade? You have a great. It's like a restaurant saying, "Hey, our food's not bad, but we get great dessert." It's like that's not good. It's the whole experience. So when they work as a collaborative team, it just is such a powerful sense. So just want you to understand that. And I think that the investment of really investing in our people in a high stakes environment where we're spending a lot on education, it's foolish not to develop your people to be the best that they can be. I was really touched today by a lot of them. So I don't really know if there's anything else, questions, or they stole all my thunder. They talked about innovation, rigor, relevance, all that stuff.
I have a comment just about being able to attend the in-service today and how empowering it was to someone in a completely different industry in healthcare, how you can hear what we're doing and what's being recommended, and to see the support behind it is absolutely amazing. Dr. Daggett mentioned, teachers are like the surgeons. I don't know if he mentioned that in the second lecture, but I was like, yeah, they are surgeons. They don't say, if my time's up for the day, I'm going home. They're the ones that we really need to make sure we take care of. And professional development is huge. Professional development is what's going to take us from good to great. And so, there's discussions about, the cost of this trip. To me, we couldn't afford not to do this trip, because you're going to bring that passion and that excitement back, and it's just going to feed into everything, every child you touch, every coworker that you work with, your peers, everything, and it's just gonna set off a fire. So I feel blessed to be part of this district in my little way, but you guys are the rock stars. You're the surgeons, you're the ones that are carrying the baton for us, and I'm very proud to see the excitement and the passion that you guys have. So, thank you.
You know, it's, our companies, it's interesting because, you know, when I look overall at the school districts and the amount of money spent, it's when you can focus your expenditure is really critical. You could spend the same amount of money on 100 different people going in 100 different directions, or as a business, you would say, you know, this is what we need to do. Business. I do a lot of work in the business world, and they would never spend on 100 different things. They would say, what's the focus? What are we trying to do? And then the other thing that's really powerful about what has occurred is it creates this synergy, which is, I heard them talking about teachers teaching teachers. And you know, it doesn't change from the outside, it changes from the inside. So the power has to be that they have to feel empowered, and they have to feel knowledgeable, and they have to feel like they're the leaders of the transformation. And I think, you know, I was listening to them, many of them today talk. We had long conversations after the sessions, but you know, they were saying they feel like they're in control, and I think that's really an important. That's a significant step. There are very few districts. You ought to be proud. There are very few districts where educators would get up and say, we think we're on the right path, we know where we're going, we feel proud, we feel confident, but we also know we have to change. And about the change thing, I think what's really critical, my last parting, or my, whatever you want to talk about, I'm fine, but is that, you know, when you're really a good school, change is steady and incremental. It's not giant and massive. And so you have to be ready to have that, you know, that ramping up. So slowly you transform. It's not an overnight thing. If you were in a terrible situation, obviously they have takeovers, and they'll take a school over. But you're doing really good work. So it's that steady movement toward the future. And I think, you know, I think the teachers seem to have a good handle on that. Feels exciting. It really does. This is one of the best trips I've had all year. So even though we had like 7 delays, it was great. Thank you.
Right.
Thank you all so much.
Well, Ray, while I have you still up here, I wanted to make sure publicly we thank Alex Wallace again.
I agree. I completely agree.
Our surgeon of the board, yeah, for his thoughtfulness and interest in funding your presentations today, and to continue this empowerment process and journey that we're on as a district. So thank you.
After the presentation starts, we know that it's a great investment.
Yeah, money well spent for sure. So thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I'm sure we have more questions for you guys, so don't leave.